What's up, everybody? Peter Ariz here alongside D Money. This is Group Chat Football Live, a daily show dedicated to taking you guys through all of the moves in the transfer portal across the country, the coaching movement, basically everything transactionally here in college football. And big day today, huge day. Things are happening. QB decisions are being made already 3 days into the portal opening. But of course, D, we got to start with the biggest news of them all. As Inside Carolina is reporting here just a little bit ago that Bill Belichick and North Carolina are finalizing a deal.
Yeah, pretty good resume for the former ACC Coastal. You're talking about 9 Super Bowl appearances, 6 titles just as the head coach, 3rd winningest coach of all time at the NFL level. Never coached in college, and only 8 months younger than Mack Brown, who we all understand was pushed out the door because of his age. So many layers to this, such an interesting move. You see some things that are new and you've never seen before as far as a college program, and then some things that kind of remind you of the past and other great coaches at the college level and certain things they've done. So we'll break it all down because there's a lot to unpack with Bill Belichick to North Carolina.
And you see the tweet right here. Again, the report from Inside Carolina. And this is breaking news within the last hour here, as it's been rumored here for a few days. And I think when the report first dropped, everyone was sort of like, all right, we've seen this story before of a high-profile coach's name get tossed around these college jobs that you never really, would think that there was a chance of them taking. Some people said, well, maybe it's Belichick's idea to get his name thrown back around and put some pressure on NFL owners to make some decisions or kind of put things in motion behind the scenes. But it looks like we're inching closer here, again, as this report from Inside Carolina says that one of the greatest NFL coaches of all time is going to try his hand at the college level.
Yeah, and to me, when I mentioned it reminds me of certain things that have happened in the past at the college level, obviously we've never seen this kind of Super Bowl level coach do something like this. But if you look at great coaches in college, I'm talking about Bobby Bowden, Joe Paterno are right at the top of the wins list, just like Belichick is for the pros. Mark Richt, not on that level, but in that neighborhood as far as a college coach. All 3 of those coaches in their later years really focus on setting up their sons. Paterno with his son as an offensive coordinator, Richt with his son as an offensive coordinator, a quarterback coach, and then Bobby Bowden, same thing. Those 3 situations didn't work out. With Belichick, he has taken the job pretty obviously with the express purpose of having his son, Steve Belichick, who is on his own defensive coordinator in Washington with the Huskies, big-time program, obviously was in the college football championship last year. So it's not like he's taking his son from high school and putting him into a role. But I think what we're seeing here is his attempt to set up his son so when Belichick retires from this job, which can't be too far, he is already in his early 70s, he set up a program where his son, as a young coach, can be long-term and sort of follow the same blueprint and put his own stamp on it. So that's clearly what allowed this situation to transpire. And it's very, very interesting considering that North Carolina has always been a program where you wanted a little more, just knowing the athletic department, knowing the location, the recruits that are there. And could this be the move that puts him over the top and makes him a playoff team?
You see the tweet here from Pro Football Talk. I wonder how many college coaches opened their doors to Bill Belichick this season without realizing he was actually doing opposition research.
Yeah.
Interesting point there.
It sounds like this all came together fast. So I'm quoting Inside Carolina here. Sources said that the UNC search committee's initial interview with Belichick on the Zoom platform turned what some presume to be merely a courtesy conversation into the full-on birth of his candidacy. His depth of preparation and detailed plans for winning big with the Tar Heels made a profound impact. Again, this is according to Inside Carolina. Sources said UNC followed up on that Zoom interview by meeting with Belichick for an extended period on Thursday in New York City. Cunningham and the new school chancellor, Lee Roberts, made that trip per sources. So small, it seemed like almost an idea that blossomed into something real. And there's so much to try to project here from what Belichick did with the New England Patriots. The first question that jumps into my mind is the quarterback position. There's been plenty of debate about his reliance on the quarterback position at the NFL level. Of course, he had the GOAT, Tom Brady. Also had other quarterbacks, Jacoby Brissett, Matt Cassel, he's had success with. Who is going to be the quarterback for UNC next year? Is he going to go with someone on the roster? Is he going to dip into the portal? He has a very high-profile freshman quarterback, high school quarterback who would be a true freshman, Bryce Baker, committed unsigned, the top unsigned player. Bryce Baker, 6'2.5", 195, 82 player overall nationally. So he's a highly ranked quarterback, not a runner, a passing quarterback, but someone who likes to run, basketball background. He delayed his signing when Mac Brown stepped away, got fired, pushed out, whatever you want to call it. Penn State's the team trying to make a move on Baker. Do they close that deal? Does Belichick want to keep Bryce Baker in the class to be his quarterback of the future? How quickly is that relationship going to develop? That's sort of the first thing I'm watching. The second thing being, does he go in the portal and try to get a Fernando Mendoza who fits a lot of the same characteristics that Belichick's typically valued in his quarterbacks, the height, the pro-style approach, the intellect, the accuracy. Fernando Mendoza, the Cal quarterback, just jumped in the portal today. Could that be a match? A lot of things to watch at the quarterback position, which, of course, has been identified with Bill Belichick with all success, Tom Brady.
And we have breaking news here on Group Chat Football Live, as our commenter Eugene Rodriguez points out here. He says, Heartline to West Virginia. He said he's praying for it to happen. And the breaking news coming from On3 here is that Brian Hartline has interviewed for the West Virginia head coach opening. Of course, Brian Hartline, the co-OC, wide receiver coach, recruiting extraordinaire for Ohio State, someone who's very well known and has been in the mix for opportunities for not head coaching, but I should say offensive coordinator opportunities. Got that co-OC title this year at Ohio State, but you would think he wants to take that next step and be a play caller and kind of run the show.
Yeah, and look, a lot of big-time recruits recruited by Brian Hartline to Ohio State. Jeremiah Smith, probably going to be the best player in the entire nation next year, projecting. That was a big-time recruit that Brian Hartline landed from South Florida, where he's recruited pretty heavily. If Brian Hartline were to leave, does a Jeremiah Smith consider entering the portal? He is somebody who is not from Ohio. He is from South Florida. Any school in the country would break their budget for a Jeremiah Smith. The quarterback situation at Ohio State is not particularly settled. You have Julian Sayin, the young player. You have other young quarterbacks on that roster. Some have left. Evan Brown out the door. Will Howard, of course, just a one-year player. You have Taven St. Clair as a five-star freshman coming in. If you're Jeremiah Smith and you're trying to win Heisman's and be the first pick overall or top 5 pick in the next 2 years, are you watching the quarterback situation and saying, my coach has left, I don't have a quarterback, do I test the market like Caleb Downs did in reverse? Of course, the highly touted safety who went from Alabama to Ohio State when he was already on top of the world. This is all just speculating. Brian Hartline has not officially taken any West Virginia job or been offered, but to me, that's an interesting angle to it. But also just focusing on the West Virginia part, Brian Hartline. West Virginia, when they were really good, did a great job recruiting South Florida. Hartline has ties there. Hartline, obviously familiar with that territory in terms of West Virginia, Kentucky, Ohio, South Ohio. He knows the area. He can recruit there, and he can, really improve the talent level of West Virginia back to where it should be, where they're producing pro players at a decent rate. Schematically, he's been the offensive coordinator, but how much roles he had in the offense, I don't know what he brings to the table from a schematic standpoint. I think what you really are getting is a leader, a recruiter, a face of the program, someone bringing energy to West Virginia if he does choose to take that job.
If you're just joining the stream right now, again, this is Group Chat Football Live, a daily show. Some of you guys may know D Money and I, Peter Ariz from Canes Insight, where we do our work over there, canesinsight.com, and we have our daily show there. This is Group Chat Football Live. We are taking a national look at transfer portal moves, coaching moves, and as you were just alluding to, D, kind of like the ripple effect that happens if a Brian Hartline were to take that job at West Virginia or something of that nature. So these sort of stories we're going to continue to track over the next few weeks here as we go daily live. Again, appreciate we got 20 plus in here right now. So I think this might be our best numbers yet to this point. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Appreciate everyone who's on here. So moving on from the coaching situation at North Carolina, of course, stunner here that Bill Belichick is looks like he's accepted the job according to Inside Carolina once again. But Auburn, man, they're putting their name in the mix here for a lot of different options at the quarterback position. We have different crystal balls coming in, different visits. You have a young stud waiting in the wings, Deuce Knight, which we'll talk about him in a minute. But let's break down what's happening at Auburn right now in terms of the quarterback situation as they're trying to get that position right.
Yeah, you look at Auburn, they were famously did not look to the portal to try to add some talent to this room last offseason. Stuck with Peyton Thorne, did not have the season that they hoped to have. Thorne's numbers actually were not terrible, but you look at the offense, 23.6 points per game against FBS competition. That's 96th in the nation, 40th in passing yards. Actually not bad. 8 yards per attempt, which is 26th in the nation. They ran the ball pretty well, but where we ran into a problem was the red zone scoring percentage. They just had a lot of red zone struggles, 124th in that category. And we talk about red zone scoring. So much of that's about your quarterback, his ability, his decision-making with those tight windows, his ability to run if he has that ability, just the ability to finish those drives with points. That's what separates quarterbacks that can make a splash play here or there, maybe make a chunk play between the 20s, but not able to finish it like a great quarterback can. I think that really hurt Auburn. They're in the mix for a lot of names, different types of names. So you wonder, are they just throwing numbers at the problem? Are they doing kind of like what Atlanta Falcons did this year in the pros with Michael Penix and Kirk Cousins? And just really 4 names that you look at here as potential options. They've had backups transfer out, so the room is almost going through a clean slate here. 4 names in the mix at Auburn with the departures of Peyton Thorne and others.
Yeah, you see here Malik Murphy, who his name's been in the mix at a couple places now. He's going to be visiting this week. And then this is an interesting one to me here. Jackson Darnold. His name's been tossed around at Mississippi.
Jackson Darnold, you're pulling at me.
Oh my goodness,
you're pulling at me.
I just pulled a D money. He loves to jumble names around. I just did one pretty badly there. Jackson Arnold, excuse me. So he's another guy in the mix here in this quarterback carousel, I'll call it. So he's another guy who got a crystal ball. So you have a couple guys with crystal balls. He's visiting this week. And just, a lot of interesting things in motion at Auburn with a stud coming in next year in Deuce Knight.
Yeah, I mentioned Hank Brown, the backup leaving. So he's training to Iowa. I should note that is the reporting on Auburn's backup quarterback, Hank Brown, who did have snaps as a starter this year. So Jackson Arnold, been linked previously to Mississippi State with his offensive coordinator, Jeff Lebby. He's visiting Mississippi State on Friday. Auburn on Thursday. We're recording this on Wednesday, so his visit to Auburn is tomorrow. Look at the stats: 1,400 yards, 12 touchdowns, 3 INTs, 40 for rushing yards, 3 touchdowns. Obviously, the issue at Oklahoma, the receiving corps decimated, yet your top 5 receivers injured at one point. Offensive line, one of the worst in the country, certainly one of the worst in the SEC. You look at Hugh Freeze. Hugh Freeze has had success with different types of quarterbacks, with athletic quarterbacks, the dual threats that can certainly throw first, but have running ability. Jackson Arnold's a guy that fits like a glove in that system, assuming everything else is right around him. You have great receivers, certainly much better than you had at Oklahoma. Cam Coleman, number 1 on that list, should be an All-America candidate last year. So if you look at Auburn's situation, even with the struggles, it is better than what you had at Oklahoma for Jackson Arnold, and better what you would have at Mississippi State, where you've had receivers leave in the portal and you only won 2 games last year. So Auburn, of those 3 schools where he's leaving and then the other schools considering, to me, is the best situation for him if he wants to go in that direction. But of course, his offensive coordinator, Jeff Lebby, at Mississippi State.
And then, as I mentioned, the other guy who's in the mix in that situation, Deuce Knight. So highly touted, highly talented 5-star quarterback, lefty, previously committed to Notre Dame. And here are his midseason highlights from this season. So you mentioned sort of the Atlanta Falcons comparison, and this would be your Michael Penix in that situation.
Absolutely. And there's a few other veteran quarterbacks in the mix we'll talk to in a second, but this guy is the one that is most intriguing to me. I saw him at OT7 in Tampa, which was only throwing. There was no running involved in that 7-on-7 circuit, and he threw the ball well. He was probably the best quarterback there just from a passing standpoint, certainly the most physically impressive. But then you watch the highlights, extreme athleticism. He tested off the charts in terms of the laser testing at the Under Armour camp. You see him on film running, a little inconsistent on the field. That's why he hasn't reached the rankings of a Tevin St. Clair, Bryce Underwood, guys like that. That's really the only thing holding Deuce Knight from being recognized with those guys. Keelan Russell is the on-field production. It's more flashes. But a coach like Hugh Freeze can do a lot with him, especially if he has a veteran quarterback to sort of build up Deuce Knight, the Pat Mahomes style, while the veteran quarterback holds it down. And again, it's not just Jackson Arnold that you're talking about, who has multiple years of eligibility. You also have other names in the mix, including somebody who's visiting Auburn right now in Malik Murphy.
Yeah, and here's some more footage from recently here of Deuce Knight. And we'll get to Malik Murphy now in just a second. As we talked about Malik Murphy last show yesterday in terms of his decision to leave Duke, obviously was previously at Texas. Before that was a big recruit coming out. What do you make of that potential fit there with Malik Murphy as he's going to be visiting this week?
So he's actually visiting today on Wednesday. So Jackson Arnold tomorrow at Malik Murphy today. Very productive when you look at the numbers, almost 3,000 yards, 26 touchdowns. The INT is a little high, 12 INTs. Won 9 games. Would have had a chance to win 10 games if he stayed for the bowl, which he's not. Darian Mensah commits to Duke. We'll talk about that here in a second. I know there's some questions in the chat we'll get to. But Malik Murphy's a solid option, strong arm. Maybe the stats don't reflect the consistency because there was some inconsistency there. But if you're comparing him to Deuce Knight, Jackson Arnold, and then Ashton Daniels, who we'll get to in a second, he's probably the most pocket-first quarterback of this crew, really more of a passing quarterback than a dual threat. But if you pair him with a Deuce Knight, you could have Deuce Knight almost playing that Tebow role where he comes in, has a chance to run, and then Malik Murphy is your thrower. Whereas with Jackson Arnold and Ashton Daniels, again, who we'll talk about, you want those guys running. Those are running quarterbacks, true dual threats who could absorb contact and get you yards with their legs.
Ashton Daniels, you mentioned him, a guy who would be coming over from Stanford. He's played a lot the last couple of years. His stats, I don't think, are going to do anything to wow you. Guy originally from Buford, Georgia. So where does he play into the equation here? Again, by the numbers, hasn't shown as much as these other guys.
Yeah, 669 rushing yards for Stanford last year, 10 passing touchdowns, 12 INTs, really more of a runner. Not a great season for Stanford. I think if you go the Ashton Daniels route, which he's been crystal balled to Auburn by 247. So is he a +1 with all these guys where you take 2 transfers, Ashton Daniels, you get him in the boat and he doesn't affect the other guys? I don't know. Maybe if you're a Jackson Arnold, you're not worried about Ashton Daniels, or Malik Murphy, you're not worried about Ashton Daniels. But he obviously brings that running to the table. And he's a run-first quarterback. More so, Arnold, I say, is a true dual threat, a guy that has run for a ton of yards in his career, top 10 player overall in the nation coming out of high school, really good runner, and was more of a runner here in the SEC because of the issues at wide receiver that Oklahoma had. Daniels, let's say you bring in a Malik Murphy, you could have Daniels as that change of pace runner instead of Deuce Knight while you work Deuce Knight up. You could use him in a limited role. He doesn't have to be your starting quarterback. I'm sure he has designs on that starting quarterback job. That's why he's interested in Auburn, but you don't necessarily have to bring him in to be the guy. And he's also probably not going to have the price tag that a Jackson Arnold has because of the competition from other schools.
Yep. Very, very interesting situation at Auburn. And we'll see how it ends up kind of working out there, because they've got a lot of options right now. But like you said, I think they're trying to throw their name in as many of these guys, options to just one of them's got to hit. You mess around with as many of these quarterbacks, you gotta work out with one of them. So we'll see what happens there. A decision that has been made today: Darian Mensah on his way to Duke, number 1 ranked quarterback at this point in the transfer portal, decides to go and replace Malik Murphy pretty quickly in this process here. And we actually had a comment about that from Mo Kane saying, how did Murphy get out? And obviously Mensah happened so fast at Duke. Did Mensah even take any visits? And yes, he was on campus the last couple of days there at Duke. And then, of course, makes it official today. So that's a huge pull for Manny Diaz and his staff over there at Duke after a 9-win season here. The Malik Murphy stuff kind of happened surprisingly. And now you have Darian Mensah to slot in here. Really, really impressive season for him at Tulane.
Yeah, Mo couldn't be accusing Duke of tampering, could he? I don't see that would never happen, right? Yeah, so Manny's not a rookie to the transfer portal. He is somebody who, while he was at the University of Miami, got Tate Martell in the portal, actually got a waiver for him, which is a very big move at the time because he didn't have the 1 year. You still have the 1 year sit out rule that you don't have anymore. He got De'Ara King to the Miami Hurricanes, who ended up having Manny's best season while he was at quarterback. So he is not a stranger to the transfer portal world. Of course, Malik Murphy himself was a transfer from Texas. So I think he was very aggressive in pursuing Darian Mensah, very familiar with the process, and was able to land a high priority target. You talk to people around college football, you hear there was a big price tag with Darian Mensah. This was not cheap. Duke was playing a big boy payment to get this player. Obviously, they feel they're close, having been a 9-win team with potential for a 10-win team, a winning team the past 2 years with Mike Elko. Had Riley Leonard. He was successful. Now they're looking to take it to a whole new level with a different style of quarterback, much more of a passer with Darian Mensah, one of the most efficient players in the country by the numbers.
And it's a guy who is still very early on in his development with multiple years of eligibility here, D. So huge get for Duke. And to me, again, he has the physical tools here, really showed a great ability in the pocket as a passer, good feet as well. And for someone who wasn't expected to be the starter coming into the season for Tulane, it really seemed like it clicked quickly for him after winning the job in camp.
Yeah, Pete sent you a video on Darian Mensah from some game film here. You look at the stats, redshirt freshman. This is a guy who was expected to be a scout team third string type quarterback for the season, but rocketed up the charts. He is from California, Central Coast, San Luis Obispo, right there in between San Francisco and Los Angeles. 65% of his passes, almost 66%, 2,723 yards, 22 touchdowns, 7 INTs, also ran for 132 and another TD. But what stands out with him is the efficiency. You were talking about 9.5 yards an attempt, which puts him tied for Cam Ward for third in the country. He was also top 10 in quarterback rating. You look at the other names that he is competing with in that quarterback rating spot. They're all in the college football playoff, or the name Cam Ward, or the name Shedeur Sanders or Jackson Dart. These are the names that he's playing with in terms of when you look at the quarterback rating leaderboard. So he's an extremely efficient passer. Smooth and balanced is the way I look at him. Play action fakes are outstanding. That's really what you saw at Tulane. It was a run-first offense. But then off of that run-first offense, Mensah was able to hit big plays. That's why he had the big yards per attempt. Again, you see it here against a good Oklahoma team. Well, not that good Oklahoma team, but a SEC team relative to Tulane. There again, you see the play action fake, the balance in the pocket, throwing downfield. That's what you see time and time again on Mensah's film, is that balance, the smoothness, the ball handling, and the ability to take it downfield and generate these big chunks. Again, bad snap, athletically picks it up, steps up, right on time. This guy with a lot of talent. You put him in the ACC, I think he's going to fit like a glove. Duke will need to add players around him. They had good receivers. There's a couple whom are moving on. So they have work to do, but it's a lot easier to get receivers to come to your program when you have a proven quarterback like a Mensah.
Does it tell you anything about where the quarterback market is, that this is what some consider the number one QB in the portal, and he goes to Duke one visit and boom, decision done? Or is that just, do you think there's more QBs yet to hit the portal? I mean, does this signal anything to you?
I think if you look at what Mensa brings as a 3-year eligibility guy, not everybody's in the market for that kind of player, right? You have a team like Michigan, you have Bryce Underwood. The most you're going to want is a 1-year bridge player. And let's say you're LSU, you might want a younger player to develop behind Nussmeier for a year, but not Mensa's trying to come in and start. So it's not a fit for everybody. Ohio State, 5-star quarterback in the pipeline. USC, 5-star high-end quarterback in the pipeline. You also have Alabama with the 5-star quarterback in the pipeline. So where does he really fit? Not every team needs a 3-year eligibility player, but Duke was aggressive. They made the pitch. Big opportunity from the ACC. It's still, big time football. You have 2 ACC teams in the playoff. So I think it was a good pitch for Mensa, and he was someone who they prioritized clearly and wanted to get it done without letting him get out the building, which he did not. And the upside is tremendous. I don't think Duke's ever had a quarterback. They had top 10 quarterback in Daniel Jones. They have another quarterback in Riley Leonard, who's really a successful college quarterback. But in terms of pure passing ability, at least at the college level, I don't think they've had a guy like this that's just going to put up monster numbers. Thad Lewis back in the day from Miami, who went to Duke, he was very productive. But again, I don't think anybody had the pure college passing ability of a Darian Mensa.
What a day for the Tobacco Road rivalry, man. Duke and Carolina. Between Belichick to North Carolina and Mensa to Duke. I mean, look, big moves for the ACC as well, I would say.
Yeah, a lot of money being spent too. So
by programs that North Carolina has money, without a doubt, but you wouldn't necessarily think of them as spending a lot of money here in the ACC. So good news for the conference.
Good news for the conference, and I'm happy for Manny Diaz, who's worked hard to be a head coach, had a tough time in Miami, goes to Penn State, rehabilitates his reputation, goes to a program in Duke that probably fits him a little better, and now gets a quarterback that will be the symbol of his era there, his regime there. This is a quarterback that's got multiple years. So this is Manny's quarterback. This is the guy he's going to hitch his wagon to. Let's see how it turns out.
Now, another pretty high-profile name also hit the portal at quarterback this morning, and that is Cal quarterback Fernando Mendoza. D, you and I are very familiar with Fernando Mendoza, him being a guy who played his ball here in Miami in high school at Columbus, and someone who had a really good season this year for Cal, had a viral moment there in a post-game interview. Everything from a character standpoint that we know about him is A++. Has been a guy who's always consistently gotten better every single year that we've seen him. Tall, lanky, more athletic than people give him credit for, I would say. He's not a statue in the pocket. And you look at his numbers this year. I mean, going into the last game of the season before he got hurt, he was the number 11 passer in the country. So you're looking at a guy who didn't have a whole lot of help around him at Cal either. The offensive line was one of the worst in the country by the numbers. Jaden Ott was hurt for a good amount of the year, and then I don't think he really had the talent on the perimeter. Had some good tight ends over there, but outside of that, it's going to be very interesting to see where this guy lands, because the early buzz is that he is someone who the NFL is interested in, and again, has played a lot of football now at this point.
Yeah, Fernando Mendoza is going to be one of the hottest names in the portal. You saw the tweet from Chris Hummer, 247, saying between coaching sources, personnel office sources, they believe this is a big-time quarterback, a high-end guy with NFL potential. That's how he's viewed. That's how he's valued. He is going to make a lot of money by entering the portal. His brother is at Indiana as a young backup quarterback. Could that be a fit to replace Curtis Rourke, play major Big Ten football, carry on what they're building there with Coach Cignetti? That makes a lot of sense. Michigan, I don't see it as much because you do have Bryce Underwood waiting in the wings. But Big Ten in general, I think, is a fit for Mendoza. He's a smart player. You could put him in the cold weather and he'll be fine. He's actually somebody that I watched in high school, and I like to think, I hope to think I was one of the first people to say he was a D1 player. At that time, he was committed to Yale to show you how smart he was. And I remember seeing him and I posted about it. I wondered, how is this guy not a Division I player? He's 6'5". He's getting more athletic. He took some time to coordinate into his body, played in the run first type of offense. But here's the post. What's this? What was this from 2021?
This is from November 23rd, 2021. Yeah.
So again, saw Mendoza and committed to Yale, said this guy, he plays in a run first offense at Columbus, but he wins quite a bit in that offense. And he's improved a lot over time, mostly from the athletic standpoint. Not the most twitchy, explosive guy, but a smooth athlete as he coordinated into that 6'5" frame and he had good arm strength. Of course, Yale committed at that time, so the IQ part is pretty easy to see. Goes to Cal, starts as a true freshman, continues to develop. One of the most prolific passers in the country this year from a yardage standpoint, had over 3,000 yards, missing a game. Did not have great protection. California's offensive line was weak. Did not have that great receivers. Got better towards the end, but beginning of the year was missing a lot of guys. Running back wise, Jaden Knott was not what he was the prior year. So this guy really carried Cal to a bowl, almost single-handedly, had the big comeback win against Stanford, the emotional postgame. Put him in an offense where he can be the game manager, somebody who uses his intellect and his ability to see the field to distribute the ball to good weapons. I think this guy can be one of the better passers in college football. He already is statistically, at least from a yardage standpoint, but the touchdowns and all those kind of things, the efficiency, that'll take a jump when you get better players around him. Again, I mentioned Indiana as a potential fit. Georgia is looking for a quarterback. I don't know if they found it. We'll see what happens in the playoff here with Gunnar Stockton. They could be someone to watch. We just talked about Auburn. Are they going to try to circle back with the Mendoza? They've lost to Mendoza when he went to the Plains and beat them with his Cal team. A lot of teams need a player like this. If Drew Aller goes pro unexpectedly, does Penn State become a team in the quarterback market? This is a very, very interesting one to watch. I think a lot of teams are going to be interested in Drew Aller.
Well, you mentioned, to speculate in terms of Mendoza, you mentioned Indiana. His brother, Alberto, is a freshman quarterback there at Indiana. So, I mean, just again, speculating, you have to think after the season Indiana's had, does he say to himself, look, I'll go in, I'll replace Rourke for a year, and then my brother takes over after that? I mean, that seems like a potential landing spot for him, but there has not been any news on visits. No word yet. Miami could be someone who's obviously in the market for a quarterback, and we know that there are the ties there between obviously his dad, who played at the same high school as Mario Cristobal. And we have a question here from Tally Kane.
Right there, if he's so highly rated, why did Miami?
I think this question was about Mensa.
Oh, here we go. He did have a question about Mendoza, saying, do you see Miami going after Mendoza or sitting or waiting? I do see Miami taking a good look at Mendoza. They obviously familiar with him. They played him. He had a big game against Miami this year in Cal. Miami's evaluating. They got other things that they're working on, looking at, but I do see Mendoza as a potential fit. I don't think that would be my prediction of where he lands, but it's very possible because of the offensive line, because of the variety of weapons. Of course, Emory Williams, their backup quarterback this year, similar cerebral type, tall pocket passer to Mendoza. I'm sure there'll be some on the team who would say, why'd you bring in a guy to replace somebody that we already like and have? That's something to monitor. But to me, Mendoza just feels like Big Ten to me. If I'm predicting right here, I'm saying Indiana is the fit to carry on their winning tradition, and then bridge with his brother, who redshirts, then takes over as a redshirt sophomore.
Now, a guy we're getting a lot of comments and questions about here, who we had next on the docket, Michael Van Buren, freshman quarterback from Mississippi State, has entered the portal. Obviously, Mississippi State, it's been reported, they've been messing around and looking at a Jackson Arnold, for example, here. So when you look at Van Buren, got thrust into the starting role this year after injury, had some ups and downs, but the flashes of talent were evident from him.
Yeah, this is a head scratcher to me to see Michael Van Buren enter the portal. I don't know if he's seen other Mississippi State players leave and he wants to get out the door. Does he see his path for playing time potentially threaten at Mississippi State? Again, Jeff Lebby recruiting his old quarterback, Jackson Arnold. He's going to be visiting on Friday. This was before Van Buren announced he's entering the portal, so maybe Van Buren just doesn't fit into the plans. there's a lot of things you could look at here. But when I take a look at Van Buren, freshman starter, true freshman starter in the SEC without much talent around him, 2-win team, 1,886 yards, 11 touchdowns, 7 picks. Against Georgia, 306 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 INT. I watched that game, and he was throwing it downfield. He had a very quick, twitchy arm. He's not the tallest guy in the world, only 5'11", but he was standing in the pocket, challenging Georgia's defense, again, throwing it downfield. And he looked to me like a future SEC starter. So this is someone I think is going to get a lot of interest in the portal. Is he going to prioritize going to a bigger program where maybe he sits a year, pulls a Dante Moore, or Dante Moore played a year at UCLA, then goes to Oregon, sits to take over the subsequent year? Maybe that's the best situation for a Van Buren, but he showed that you could play him next year and feel pretty good about what he's going to bring, assuming the pieces around him are in place.
So we have some comments here, and JR Godfather was just asking about Van Buren. Booker's Rebirth said, I like what the guy in the blue shirt said about now recruiting a high school quarterback. I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
That's Mill. That's me.
Think,
yeah, it's me.
Yeah,
it's black, but yeah,
it looks blue in the cameras here.
Yeah. So I mean, look, the portals is an interesting thing because you don't have to always get a win now veteran, right? So you can get a younger player instead of a high school player and develop him from the portal. There's not all just instant players from the portal. Again, Dante Moore is the latest example going to Oregon, even though he had played as a true freshman for UCLA. Does he develop into the starter for Oregon despite not signing there over time? You can see that situation. Jalen Daniels developed at LSU. Bo Nix was already pretty experienced when he went to Oregon, but he really developed and became a player there. So yeah, to me, I know Blake Shapen was the projected starter at Mississippi State. Actually got out to a great start, 8 touchdowns, 1 INT. Still has eligibility. Is he going to be just come back and walk right into his role? I guess. But Van Buren would be where I would be putting my chips. You already have him and know what he is, assuming that there's no personal issues there. But I don't know where he fits. You look at Penn State. He is from Baltimore, Maryland. That is very much a Penn State area, Penn State country. Won a lot with St. Francis, 2 top 10 finishes nationally as the quarterback for that powerhouse team in Baltimore in the Mid-Atlantic. You can see the fit at Penn State, sort of waiting his turn and then being a Trace McSorley type undersized gunslinger for the Penn State Nittany Lions. So there's been no reports on where Van Buren's looking, but if I'm just putting the pieces together, I think Penn State is a nice fit for a Michael Van Buren, even if he doesn't start right away.
Almost 30 live viewers here in the chat. Appreciate everyone who's on here. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. This is Group Chat Football. Again, I keep repeating it, but some of you guys who are in the chat obviously know us from Canes Insight. That's D Money. I'm Peter Rees, and this is a new daily live show that we're doing, and a ton of college football content in terms of the transfer portal, coaching movement, all sorts of stuff like that. So excited to have these sort of discussions with you all. Keeping things on the quarterback position, moving from Van Buren, a guy who showed a lot of talent, flashed a lot, but there's still some development there, to a guy in Chandler Morris who's been around a while. Really good season for him at North Texas this year. Already some rumors about him to Oklahoma State. He was visiting there yesterday. This was a guy who, for those of you who don't remember the name, who may sound familiar, but he has been now, this is going to be school number 4, started at Oklahoma, went to TCU, was the starter before getting hurt the year that they went to the national title, which led way for Max Duggan, right? So was at Oklahoma, TCU, goes to North Texas, and then has a really, really big year by the numbers, 4,000 yards of offense, second team all conference. And now it looks like Oklahoma State, who Mike Gundy looked like he was going to lose his job there for a second if he didn't come to an agreement on lowering his contract, but really need a big bounce back year. And Chandler Morris, a guy who's been around a while and seems like would be a pretty good fit in that system.
Yeah, from Highland Park in Dallas, Texas, same area as Clayton Kershaw, Matt Stafford, affluent area in Dallas. 3-star, really athletic player in high school, kind of deceptively athletic. You look at him as a passer, but he had a 4.7 40, 4.3 shuttle in high school, has that ability. You mentioned he was starting at TCU before he got hurt. Max Duggan goes in, finishes second in the Heisman, finalist there. Oklahoma State needs to juice up that scoring offense. 72nd nationally in scoring offense against FBS teams, 25.6 points per game. That is not where Oklahoma State is. 78th in yards per pass. They like to throw downfield. They didn't get that with their offense this year. We know, knowing Coach Gundy, he likes veteran quarterbacks. I think he probably has the highest average age of starting quarterback in the country. So a guy like Chandler Morris, who is class of 2020, he was there with Bryce Young, CJ Stroud. Those are his contemporaries from a quarterback standpoint. Obviously, he has experience and age on him. Fits Oklahoma State. It makes a lot of sense. There's not that much difference between number 1 and the bottom of the Big 12. So you get a guy like Chandler Morris coming off a huge year at North Texas, a lot of confidence. You have a coach who knows what he wants to do, can speak the same language as the veteran quarterback. The fit just makes a ton of sense. It's just so weird talking about Oklahoma State being at the bottom of the Big 12. Get back to where you've been in the past. Get a quarterback who knows how to throw. Texas quarterback, they've had success with those. I just think that's a fit because of the age and the style of play.
Now, rounding out the quarterback talk for the day here, you have New Mexico quarterback Devin Dampier potentially heading to Utah. Could follow his offensive coordinator Jason Beck, who was at New Mexico with him. This is a guy from Arizona originally, 5'10", 198. Not going to wow you with his numbers as a passer. I think there's still some development to go there. 12 touchdown, 12 interception ratio this year, but 1,166 on the ground, 19 rushing touchdowns. He ran for 9 touchdowns in the last 4 games of the year there. So, I mean, on the ground, a real weapon. And again, the fact that he could team up with his offensive coordinator, Jason Beck, you always know that Utah is going to have a strong offensive line for the most part. They have some tough athletes over there, and Kyle Whittingham's not going anywhere, right? So they're going to have a really solid foundation for the most part. Obviously, it wasn't a great season for them this year, but do you see that as a good fit for him?
Totally. He's from Arizona, obviously bordering Utah. So location-wise, it makes sense. Really, when you look at his dimensions, 5'10", about 200 pounds, and then the stats, he's almost like a running back playing quarterback, although he does have a good arm. You see him flash that arm. It's not the most consistent with the 12 touchdowns, 12 INTs, but it's not like he has a pop gun. He does have some juice in his arm. He can make plays there. You have to respect his ability to throw downfield. But you look at Utah. Utah's not a program that was always scoring 40 points a game. They're play defense. They run the ball. They're physical. They're tough. They're sound. If you put a quarterback there who is going to be able to keep you ahead of the sticks with his running, to be able to convert third downs with his running, to amplify the running backs he's handing off to because you don't know if he's going to keep it and the defense is playing on his heels. I like the fit. I like a run. Even though Utah has not always had running quarterbacks, I like the fit of a running quarterback in Utah because it just fits their personality. It fits their approach to controlling the game and winning ugly when you have a guy like this. And this is not just a player who's going to run for first downs and short yardage. He's explosive as a runner, so you can get big plays out of his running ability. To me, it's a perfect fit. And we're talking about Chandler Morris at Oklahoma State. Utah is very similar to Oklahoma State in that you expect them to be at the top of the conference, not towards the bottom. They want to get right back into it. You play a quarterback like this you play a certain style, you can win games right away at Utah, especially if your defense is up to par. There's so much uncertainty at that quarterback position. Isaac Wilson, Cam Rising never knew what he was doing with his health. With Devin Dampier, you bring him in, especially pairing with the coordinator who knows him in Jason Beck. He is going to play a certain style. You're going to know exactly what you're going to get. You build around him, and you win games.
Yeah, I think it could be a really, really intriguing fit there. And this quarterback carousel, man, it's very interesting how they are all so connected. One move is a domino effect to another. So we'll be tracking it every day here on Group Chat Football Live. Now, talking about quarterbacks, let's talk about a guy who has mentored a lot of quarterbacks in his career, the new offensive coordinator at South Carolina, Mike Shula, son of the great Don Shula, of course, former head coach at Alabama. And I got to say it, an alum of Christopher Columbus High School here in Miami. Seems like Columbus is always in the football world. Somehow talked about Fernando Mendoza earlier today.
You should have worn your high school uniform.
I should have. I got to pull it out. So Mike Shula here, he's a guy who was credited in helping develop Cam Newton years ago at Carolina, LaNorris Sellers at South Carolina this season as he was a consultant analyst, right? So someone who has the familiarity with South Carolina. They have had a great momentum at the end of the season here. Your thoughts on this hire, and someone who is familiar with the conference, obviously, is the former head coach at Bama.
No brainer. One of the easiest hires that you look at in the cycle as far as making sense. He's already there. He's already working with your star quarterback, LaNorris Sellers, who has developed at a tremendous rate along with the rest of the program. Really, the program sort of followed his lead as a quarterback because they've always had talent everywhere, but now having the talent paired with the quarterback, now you have a purpose and you're able to win games at a level we haven't seen consistently at South Carolina in a long time. Sellers is the biggest reason for that. And you look at who developed Sellers. Dowell Loggins, now the head coach at Appalachian State. Mike Shula was also in there. Now he just takes over as the offensive coordinator. Simple move. Dowell Loggins, another guy, NFL pretty much his whole career, goes in and takes a running quarterback in LaNorris Sellers, develop him as a passer. Mike Shula, NFL guy, pretty much his whole career. Had, of course, that stint as the Alabama head coach where he played 2003 to 2006. Sorry, we coached 2003 to 2006, played there in the 80s. But other than that, NFL guy, of course, the son of the legendary Don Shula. And when you look at what he did with Cam Newton, when you look at what he did with Josh Allen, it's not like he developed Josh Allen, but he was around Josh Allen, certainly learned how they used Josh Allen and brought the best out of him at Buffalo. He takes that right into South Carolina. He's already there. He knows the player, LaNorris Sellers, having worked with him. He just is almost a carbon copy of what you just had in Dowell Loggins. And you didn't fire Dowell Loggins. He was doing great. He just got a promotion to be the head coach at Appalachian State. Go ahead and recycle the process, have Mike Shula step in, keep the momentum that you have, and get as far as you can with your quarterback and keep his forward trajectory on track. I think this move makes a ton of sense. And South Carolina's a program that's going to have a lot of juice going into next season, and this just keeps the momentum alive. No one's going to question whether the offense is going to keep on track. It should just continue without a hitch.
Ton of movement here on day 3 of the transfer portal opening, and it's only December 11th. As Booker's rebirth says, LaNorris is next. That guy can win a Heisman without a doubt, man. I mean, you see his physical ability, big arm, breaks tackles. I mean, he's running away from guys in the open field, so he's got a lot of ability, man. Excited to see how he develops.
Yeah, and that's the face of the franchise. That's the face of what you're trying to do with Coach Beamer in South Carolina. Make him successful, the rest will follow. Just like they treated Cam Newton and Josh Allen in the pros, now LaNorris Sellers. He will take that program as far as it's going to go. So anything that you do to help his development is helping the whole team, the whole offense. I think it's a brilliant move. I'm excited about South Carolina's future.
What a day in the portal. New names entering. It looks like the number one quarterback in the portal at this point, Darian Mensah, is off the board. Bill Belichick looks like he's going to be coaching in Chapel Hill. So crazy times for college football. Glad we can keep you guys updated here on Group Chat Football Live. Remember to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll keep you guys covered every day here around lunchtime. Got off to a little bit of a late start today, but appreciate everyone who's been here with us today. It's been our largest live audience, so obviously want to keep growing and building with you guys.
Appreciate all the support. See you tomorrow.
Like and subscribe. Later.